you think a big move is still looming? I mean, Silver's been all over this, it seems like, with whatever sources he has, but he's kind of suggested that a big move is coming. And it's like, that's such a, it's all relative. It's like,
Yeah.
is the Devondre Campbell the big move? Is Collins the big move? Was Leonard Floyd the big move? I mean, define big. Do you think the 49ers have anything cooking today, tomorrow? Do you anticipate another big maneuver coming, or do you think they've made their big moves?
Yeah, and look, props to Mike Silver, and obviously he's tapped into this organization. He's a NorCal guy. He went to Cal. He's known Kyle Shanahan since he was a teenager. He covered John Lynch when he was a player. He's clearly sourced. And when I was at the NFL Combine in Indianapolis a couple of weeks ago, that's when he dropped that article that the Niners were going to be making some hard decisions. And right after that, I started to think, and we talked about it last week, is Eric Armstead that guy? And Mike Silver dropped a tweet thread on Sunday night. Niners could release Eric Armstead. They really want to target an edge and prioritize that position. If they do, they might go cheaper at defensive tackle. Malik Collins was that guy. And they could target an edge like Leonard Floyd. So he's been all over some of these things. And clearly he's being fed and given some good breadcrumbs from somebody close within that organization, because when he's talking free agent targets, when he's talking tough moves by heart and tough roster decisions, he's kind of been all over it. Now, what would that big move be? You look at the cap space for the Niners now after these salary cap adjustments. The 49ers have $36.3 million. That's number one in the NFL. The Browns are second with $31.3 million, followed by the Cardinals with 10, Bengals with 9.3, and Commanders with 7.7. The average team right now has $5.7 million in cap space. San Francisco is 36. So are they doing this to free up money for all of these extensions, to take care of some of their own players? I think that's a possibility. I talked about some of the contract restructure, contract extension candidates just a little while ago. For some reason, I keep thinking of like a Patrick Surtain trade. Is a Patrick Surtain trade the big one? Because there's been this fallout for the Denver Broncos following one of the worst moves that we've ever seen in the history of football in trading for Russell Wilson. They gave up so much for Russell Wilson, draft and player capital, and then they gave him that contract. He was so bad and so unbearable that the Broncos are now paying Russell Wilson nearly $38 million to go away and play for the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's how much Sean Payton couldn't take him. And they're having to cut a lot of players. They let go of Russell Wilson. Justin Simmons is a 4-time second-team All-Pro, and he's led the NFL in interceptions since coming into the league in 2016. And now you have Surtain, who's going to be due for a massive deal. Are the Broncos willing to pay him that, knowing that they're kind of starting over and rebuilding, and doesn't make sense to pay a corner big-time dollars when you are in that rebuilding phase? So that's the type of player that I'm thinking of, because you think back to the NFL trade deadline back in October, and the 49ers and the Eagles both called Denver about a Patrick Surtain trade. So clearly there's interest there from John Lynch and San Francisco. And I also think of the tweet that you put out a few weeks ago. The great Niner teams had a great 1-2 punch at the cornerback position. You have that now with Charvarius Ward. You have a really good slot corner who's probably one of the best in the NFL, in Diamador Lenore. You have Nick Bosa. You paid Leonard Floyd. You brought in Yetur Gross-Matos, who's going to be able to play that Charles Omenihu, Arden Key, defensive end, defensive tackle type of hybrid position. You've remade the interior of your defensive line and bring in Jordan Elliott and trading for Malik Collins. You're good at linebacker. You're solid at safety, I believe, with Hufanga and Jair Brown, but we'll see if they go shopping for a Justin Simmons. What is that big move? Brian Burns is gone. That leads me to Patrick Surtain, and that's the name that keeps coming up for me.
Surtain would be incredible. I'm having a hard time deciphering the 49ers mindset in this free agent period. You're right. They're checking boxes. Like, they need another linebacker, Devondre Campbell. They need a replacement for Chase Young, Randy Gregory. Here comes Leonard Floyd. Now you tier Gross Matos. We'll talk about the tackles stepping in for Armstead. It's like they're kind of taking, if you're trying to guess along, who are they going to invest the 31st pick in? Well, you know what? Or what position? And it's just like almost every box is checked except for offensive tackle.
Yeah.
Okay, but they also have 10 picks even after moving one the other day for Collins. So they have 10 picks. That's a lot of picks. I mean, they definitely, if you said, what do they need? They could use a number one corner. They could use a starting right tackle. They could use, backup third string or second string quarterback. We'll get to that. They could maybe use another D lineman, maybe another O lineman outside of the tackle spot on the offensive side. But I mean, their needs they've checked a lot of the boxes. They don't have a lot of draft needs. And the talk about Surtain was that the price tag was going to be a first, a second, and a third. One, do you think that is still the price tag? And do you think that they are, now that they've checked all these boxes, they might be willing to maybe not go first, second, third, but how about a first, 2/3, and a second and 25, and get Surtain and use 2 or 3 picks on Surtain? Because I mean, he would, in a division that's now going to have Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. I mean, when you watched those guys at the end of the year, it just reeks of, man, you better be able to cover these guys. And I don't know about their confidence in Luter or Womack or even some of their other young corners. What's your read on the price tag of Surtain right now? What do you think it's going to cost?
Yeah, I see some people in the comment section saying the Broncos aren't going to trade Patrick Surtain unless you include Brandon Ayuk. I actually disagree, because if the Broncos are having to pull off these financial maneuverings and they're having to clear cap space, they want to rebuild under Sean Payton. That's clear to me. And I think they're going to draft the quarterback early in the first couple of rounds, whether it be a trade up for a J.J. McCarthy, who seems to be the apple of their eye, or they take a chance on a player like Spencer Rattler out of South Carolina, who has a lot of arm talent. The Broncos don't want to take on money. They want to get rid of money. What they want, I think, is draft picks. Sean Payton put out some feelers last year. He wanted to see what that roster was all about, see how they could fare in year one, see if he could massage Russell Wilson and extract the best out of him. And Russell Wilson actually played like okay football as compared to the previous year under the Hack and Nathaniel Hackett. But I think what the Broncos want is draft capital. And for Patrick Surtain, if the Niners trade for him and give him a contract extension and they fork over picks to Denver, you look at some of the draft selections for the Niners here: 31st overall, number 63 overall, and number 94 overall. You also have a 4th-round pick from the Cowboys, and you have another 4th-round pick at 130, and then you have a compensatory pick in round 4, 5, 6, 6, and then you have another 7th-round pick of your own at 251. Are you willing, on a team, on a roster that doesn't have a lot of holes, to give up 31, 63, and 94 and or a future draft pick to bring in Patrick Surtain? And are you clearing up that money right now to give him a contract extension? Because this team really doesn't have a lot of holes. They're set on offense outside of the offensive line. Bringing back John Feliciano, I think, was a tremendous deal, both with value and how he played. He was 4th among guards last year in run blocking. He was 25th in pass blocking. He was by far the highest graded interior offensive lineman on the Niners. And you're just not going to have to give him that much money on that 1-year contract, because you compare that to Robert Hunt getting $20 million per and $100 million over 5 years,
wow,
to Micah Wenu getting $19 million per year, to Jonah Jackson, who's a solid but not great guard, getting $17 million from the Rams, and then the Rams giving $16 million to Kevin Dotson. Landon Dickerson is making $21 million per with the Philadelphia Eagles, and now you probably have Feliciano, I don't know, let's call it somewhere in the neighborhood of $5, $6, maybe $7 million, because those details aren't out yet. That's a good value play. So you took care of right guard. That leaves you in the draft to need a center and a right tackle. Now, if you stand put at 31, you can get Jackson Powers Johnson, maybe at 31 out of Oregon. He's a nasty guy. or you can get a really good tackle at 31. If you trade those picks away for Patrick Surtain, do you use some of those later picks on center and tackle because you can get some good players there? And unfortunately, I hate this, but do you move forward with Colton McKivitz at right tackle? All of these are options, and I think it's good to have optionality and flexibility as a football team.
And I don't want to pat us on the back, but I really believe we're all over this right now. The more I think about this, there's a right and a wrong time to trade draft picks, multiple draft picks for a veteran. The wrong time is when you're building. The right time is when you're in your Super Bowl window and you're trying to get over the top.
Yep.
Look at the Rams. They added Jalen Ramsey. They had an incredible reservoir of great players at the top of their roster, and they were willing in like a 3-year window to trade a lot of their number ones for existing veterans because they wanted to win the Super Bowl. They did it. They made the commitment. They won the Super Bowl. I think the 49ers are probably in that exact same spot right now where they feel like, they got Trent, they've got Bosa, they've got Kittle, they've got all this talent, accumulated. And now they've operated the last 3 years or the last 2 years or whatever without any real first round picks. So they've kind of understood how to go about it as far as making day 3 matter, making after the draft matter. They've been aggressive in free agency. It's like, yeah, you know what? Trading 3 picks and maybe 2 this year, 1 next year for Surtain probably is the smart move at this point, because every draft choice from the first pick on is a risk. There's risk involved. That's why the veterans for draft pick trades oftentimes favor the team that gets the veteran, because unless you're getting multiples, the veteran's a sure thing. Brandon Ayuk can play. Jalen Ramsey can play. Where Roro may be able to play. And, some of these guys that we're talking highly of in the draft, there's a huge miss rate if you go back and research the draft, from years gone by. So you can avoid that miss rate by trading a couple picks and getting Surtain. You put a Surtain number 1 corner on this defense. I think that's going to go a great distance to winning. And I think also, Chase, coming off of the Super Bowl, I think you always try to learn a little something in the process. I think what I learned is that, man, if you have premier perimeter guys like McDuffie and Snead, man, you can really dominate. And that's what Surtain is. Surtain is every bit as good as Snead. He might be better. And I think he might be, as Coconut says here, is Surtain the missing link? I think we're hitting on it right here. And I hadn't even thought about the cap savings, but maybe you're right. Maybe the cap savings is going towards either a rollover, or maybe it's going towards an extension for Surtain and or Ayuk. Couple other things. Well, first of all, give me your thoughts on me basically patting us on the back saying that we're all over it. I do kind of think that if there is the big move coming, it's a trade for Surtain.
Yeah, no, I think so. And look, I think, this is part of the reason why you have 40,000 subscribers and you just started your YouTube channel. I've got 131,000. I've been at it for a couple of years now. No, I'm just kidding. But look, we gotta, I think we do have.
But it does make sense.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to put puzzle pieces together, you know what I mean? You start to sit there and go, you know what? Surtain makes sense for Denver to trade. Surtain makes sense for the Niners to trade for. And that is the piece that they're missing.
Yeah, no, I agree. And let's just go through the roster right now, right? You're good at quarterback. You're good at running back. You're good at tight end. You're good at wide receiver. You're good as far as, and these are all, do you need to address needs? You're good at the skill positions offensively. As I said, you need to address offensive line. I don't think Jake Brendel is a long-term answer. I think that you can improve at right guard and right tackle. Defensively, your defensive line now looks to be set outside of the draft. Linebacking core, you're okay there. Safety, You could bring in a player like Justin Simmons potentially, but I like the young pairing of Jair Brown and Talanoa Hufanga. Cornerback is the need, and that's the gap.
They have depth, but they don't have that number one.
Exactly. And offensive line is also the issue. Now, Mooney Ward was a second-team All-Pro this past year. Is he a true number one? I think he gave up, one catch in the Super Bowl? He was tremendous, and he was great all this past year. He was top 5 in interceptions. He led the NFL in pass breakups. I'd say that Patrick Surtain is the true number one, and Mooney Ward is like a 1B, right? But Mooney Ward's also going into the final year of his contract. So are you making these moves knowing that you're going further all in for 2024, but you're setting yourselves up with flexibility beyond that as well? And I know that the Super Bowl loss was a kick in the balls, really tough to take. Going back and watching it, there were so many blown opportunities, miscues. The Niners shot themselves in the foot. But everybody's like, the window's closed. It's over for this football team. The average age of this roster is like 26 years old. And you think about the age of some of your core players right now and how they're playing right now. And I'm in agreement that things can change quickly in the NFL, in a league that also stands for not for long. But Brock Purdy is 24 years old. Brandon Ayuk is 25 years old. You have Aaron Banks, who's 26. Jawan Jennings, who's 26. Christian McCaffrey is 27. Deebo Samuel is 28. George Kittle is 30, but tight ends last pretty long. And he's coming off his first 1,000-yard season since 2019. Kyle Juszczyk's 32. Trent Williams is 35. And then you look to the defensive side of the ball, you're still pretty young there. Can you get anything from Drake Jackson to be your defensive end 4? Jalen Graham, Darrell Luter Jr., D. Winters, they're all 23. Robert Beal is 24. Jair Brown, Talanoa Hufanga, Diamador Lenore, they're all 24 years old. Samuel Womack is 24 years old, and he's entering year 3. You look further. Nick Bosa is 26. Jordan Elliott is 26. Malik Cunningham, 28. Dre Greenlaw, 26. Yetur Gross-Matos is 26 years old. Fred Warner, still only 27. It feels as though he's been in the league for a decade. So you're set up pretty nicely here. Javon Hargrave, 31. He's certainly a little bit older, but let's not act like all of their core players are 30-plus years of age. They're actually pretty young, in the midst of their prime. And I like what the Niners are doing here with the flexibility and the versatility on this roster. They have $31 million in cap space right now. They can use that for Brandon Ayuk. They can use that for Fred Warner, Diamador Lenore, Charvarius Ward, Talanoa Hufanga. They are all contract extension eligible. But carrying over that money is also a thing too. And you have $18 million coming in July after the post-June 1 designation of the Eric Armstead release sets in. So Brock Purdy contract extension also looming. Why not go all in for Patrick Surtain? See how it goes in 2024. And then this time next year, if you have to make the difficult decisions on letting Mooney Ward walk, cutting a Juszczyk, cutting a Kittle or a Deebo, or trading some of those players, you can do that. And then you can restack the cupboard as far as that draft capital goes.
I just think a Surtain trade gives this team the swagger that it may not have right now. If you bring a guy like Surtain into the room, I think this team has tremendous swagger.